Tonight, police in Merseyside named the woman killed in a pub shooting on Christmas Eve. 26-year-old Ellie Edwards was at the pub in Wallasey Village with her sister and friends when she was shot. Today, people paid tribute at the scene and spoke of their shock.
You don't expect it on your own doorstep. You know, this pub, it's a nice pub. You know, you never hear of any trouble. I've got a 21-year-old son and, you know, it's devastating, to be honest.
Also on the programme, Russia says 3 people are dead after a drone attack on one of its air bases, and it blames Ukraine. At least 50 people are now known to have died as the severe Arctic freeze continues across the US and Canada.
Hurricane!
And the Premier League is back in action after the World Cup break. Good evening. A woman shot dead at a pub on Merseyside on Christmas Eve has been named by police as 26-year-old Ellie Edwards. Detectives have said they don't believe she was the intended target of the gunman, who is still at large. 4 men were also injured, one critically, in the attack, which took place inside the lighthouse in Wallasey Village. Our North of England correspondent Fiona Trott reports.
A young woman shot and killed whilst celebrating Christmas with family and friends. Ellie Edwards was at the Lighthouse pub in Wallasey Village when a man opened fire at the entrance. Merseyside police say they do not believe she was a target. Today, around 30 relatives arrived at the scene to lay flowers. The police say what they're going through is incomprehensible. One of the cards reads, "To my beautiful Ellie, you are the light of my life. You will never be gone. Mum and Dad." The killing took place at a family pub at the heart of the community. Local residents have described their shock.
Things like this don't really happen on the Wirral, so I think everyone's shocked.
You don't expect it on your own doorstep. You know, this pub, it's a nice pub. You know, you never hear of any trouble. I've got a 21-year-old son and, you know, it's devastating, to be honest.
Forensic teams have been searching the area throughout the day. Merseyside police are continuing to appeal for information and want to hear from anyone who may know the male driver of a dark-coloured vehicle, possibly a Mercedes A-Class, that was seen leaving the pub car park. 4 men were also injured in the attack. A 28-year-old from Beechwood is in a critical condition in hospital. Ellie was a beautician. Her colleagues have described her as a beautiful angel. Her whole life and career have been cut short, and at a time when her family, like many families, had come together to celebrate. Fiona Trott, BBC News.
A Russian airbase around 300 miles from Ukraine has come under attack for the second time in less than a month. The Russian Defence Ministry says the Engels base in the Saratov region was targeted by a Ukrainian drone, killing 3 of its servicemen. The Ukrainian military haven't officially admitted to the latest attack, but a spokesman said the explosions were the result of what Russia was doing on Ukrainian soil. Russia said its defences intercepted the drone, the wreckage of which caused the fatalities. The base is host to long-range Russian strategic bombers, the type of which have launched many missile strikes on Ukraine. From Moscow, our Russia editor Steve Rosenberg reports.
Caught on CCTV. An explosion at a Russian airbase. Russia says it shot down a Ukrainian drone, but that 3 Russian soldiers were killed. Engels airbase is deep inside Russian territory, hundreds of miles from the Ukrainian border. The base hosts long-range bombers, which are believed to have launched missile attacks against Ukraine. State TV reacted to the news with a familiar warning to Kiev. Russia, she says, would exact revenge by carrying out more strikes on Ukrainian infrastructure. Russia can rattle those sabres and flex its muscles, but it doesn't change the fact that what happened at Engels airbase is embarrassing for the Kremlin. For the second time in less than a month, what is an important military installation has come under attack. Quite a contrast to the image of military might that President Putin's been portraying in recent days. The Kremlin leader has promised his generals all the resources they need for the war in Ukraine. He's determined to secure something he could present as a Russian victory.
Putin is not going to back off, and nobody else is going to give him a reason to back off. And therefore, he's going to take steps necessary for him to win, whatever that victory may mean for him.
But 10 months after Russia invaded Ukraine, there is no sign of that victory. Instead, the war the Kremlin started is moving closer to home. Steve Rosenberg, BBC News, Moscow.
At least 50 people are now known to have died due to the severe Arctic freeze that continues to affect the US and Canada. One of the worst hit areas is the city of Buffalo in New York State, where the governor called the storm an epic once-in-a-lifetime event. Emily Unier has the latest.
The Arctic storm pummeling the US and Canada caused Christmas chaos for millions. Thousands of flights were cancelled and roads and railways were closed or impassable, preventing people from reaching friends and family. Emergency services battled treacherous conditions to carry out rescues. Fatalities have been confirmed across the US. One of the worst hit areas was New York State, especially in Buffalo and Hamburg in Erie County. Snow-blanketed streets and driving was banned. More than 24 people are now known to have died in the greater Buffalo region.
To all who've lost a loved one, and some of those folks may not even know it yet, just you have our deepest condolences. This has just been a horrible, the worst type of storm you can imagine. And you have my deepest condolences on behalf of the people of Erie County for the loss of a loved one on Christmas Day.
Rolling blackouts left more than 1.5 million people without power on Christmas Day. Connections are now steadily being restored. In South Florida, iguanas froze and fell from trees. They won't get moving again until temperatures rise and they can thaw out. Much further north, stunning ice formations appeared on Lake Michigan. And although the storm is starting to ease, freezing conditions are still expected for some time to come. Emily Unier, BBC News.
Now let's take a look at some other stories making the news today. South Korea says it scrambled fighter jets and fired warning shots after 5 drones crossed over its border from North Korea this morning. Flights at airports in Seoul were briefly suspended after it was reported that one of the drones had flown close to the capital. Police say a 10th person has died as a result of a huge explosion at a block of flats in Jersey early this month. Kathleen McGuinness, who was 73, lived next to the building in St Helier, which was destroyed in the blast. King Charles's first Christmas message attracted the highest viewing figures this century for the monarch's traditional festive address. More channels than ever carried the 3 p.m. speech, and there was a combined audience of 10.7 million. By comparison, Queen Elizabeth's final Christmas message a year ago was seen by 8.96 million viewers. Boxing Day shopping is up on last year, but it still hasn't returned to pre-pandemic levels. Figures for today already show that so-called footfall is still 30% down on December the 26th, 2019. Although there are the usual discounts on the high street, households are of course now being squeezed by the high cost of living, as Katie Austin reports.
In Liverpool this morning, the shoppers were out and about early.
I was here at 7:30.
Have you got anything so far?
Yeah, I've got shoes in my car already and then clothes, so.
Cost of living, you know, you've got to grab a bargain.
These days, not all retailers open on Boxing Day. Some started their sales well before Christmas, and more customers choose to buy online. But for this big shopping centre in Liverpool, it's still a crucial week.
It's very important for retailers and ourselves. Boxing Day gives the retailers the chance to clear some of that stock that they perhaps didn't sell before Christmas. Boxing Day is actually one of the quieter days of the week. It builds up throughout this week into some quite extraordinary numbers.
Cost of living pressures are expected to put a dampener on spending this year, but the manager of this store is optimistic.
I think people are now looking into what they're buying a lot more than they used to be, but we are still trading quite well.
Central London's Oxford Street filled up as the day went on.
You come out for the sales?
Yeah, I always come out. It's my birthday today, so and I don't think it's as busy as it used to be. It used to be a lot busier before. People had a lot more bags before. So
shops are starting giving sales maybe a bit earlier than usual. That's what we've heard, but there are still quite a few discounts.
So what have you found? Anything good?
Just socks so far.
A company that tracks how many people are out at shopping destinations says compared to last year when COVID badly affected trading, it's an optimistic picture. Numbers are up. However, footfall hasn't recovered to what it was before the pandemic.
It's 30% lower than it was on Boxing Day 2019, so it is significantly lower. But we mustn't forget that there is a train strike. Then there's also attached, obviously, to the cost of living crisis. People are a little bit more cautious.
After a tricky year, shops hope the big discounts can draw in much-needed customers. Katie Austin, BBC News.
Scientists have developed miniature robots called pipe bots to patrol our water network to check for faults and prevent leaks. About 3 billion litres of water is lost every day through leaks across hundreds of thousands of kilometres of water pipe in England and Wales. That's according to the industry regulator Ofwat. Researchers say that maintaining those underground pipes would be impossible without robotics. Here's our science correspondent Victoria Gill.
The water company here in Essex has detected a leak, but to find its location and fix it, they'll need to dig through a complex maze of pipes.
The sewer's sitting on top of our main, and we've also got a gas pipe in the top of the hole. We've obviously got bands of electric over the back of the hole, which makes it very difficult for us.
This team's been digging on this site, investigating for 4 days now, and they still haven't pinpointed exactly where this leak is.
Across England and Wales, about 20% of the water supply is lost through leaks. That is steadily decreasing, but water companies say finding the smallest leaks is one of their biggest challenges. The water industry's economic regulator Ofwat says leakage in England and Wales is now at its lowest level ever. But 3 billion litres per day is still lost to leaky pipes. That's enough to fill more than 1,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools. Companies have agreed to cut that wasted water in half by 2050, and Ofwat says more needs to be done.
It's the smaller leaks, so this one wasn't visible, and it's more and more of those leaks that we need to find to really drive down that leakage performance.
These are pipe bots, water main patrolling robots being developed in a lab at Sheffield University. The sensor-laden robots are small enough to travel through a pipe and check for damage. The first teams of artificially intelligent pipe bots could be put to work underground within 5 years. The tiny machines are designed to be deposited into manholes, then search for faults and cracks before pipes burst or leak.
It's underground, it's inaccessible. These are some of the most inhospitable environments on Earth. Without robotics, we're just not going to be able to do it.
Essex and Suffolk Water is also testing sealants that can be injected into pipes to plug leaks without having to dig. But with the smallest leaks still so difficult to locate, for now, they'll have to keep excavating. Victoria Gill, BBC News.
Now in football, the Premier League has resumed today after a 6-week break. In the first round of games after the World Cup, Newcastle moved up to second with a win over Leicester. The second part of the season kicked off with an entertaining draw between Brentford and Tottenham, as Patrick Geary reports.
They began with goodbye. A poignant farewell to George Cohen, forever an English World Cup winner. The events of the most recent tournament will still tax many bodies and minds, but not noticeably Brentford's. Vitaly Janelt, well rested and well placed, 1-0. Tottenham's slow starts have become a tradition. Sluggishness epitomised by Eric Dyer's attempted clearance. Corner. And as fate would have it, Ivan Toney would score from it. Simple and brutal. Dyer's own World Cup was less eventful than Harry Kane's. Brentford fans taunted him about his penalty miss. Here at least was the beginnings of a reply and the start of a fight back. As so often, Tottenham were good in a crisis. 6 minutes later, they got the ball to Pierre-Emile Højbjerg and the match was level. Momentum might have carried them further still. Kane's header can hardly have been closer. So both sides finish with relief and regret. Premier League football is back. Patrick Geary, BBC News.
Let's take a look at the weather now. Here's Ben Rich. Ben.
Hi
Hi Rita, thank you. Good evening. It's been a slightly colder Boxing Day, in fact cold enough for snow in some parts of the UK, certainly some snow in the showers across parts of Highlands, Scotland. This is the radar picture. The blue shows where we've had rain showers, but the white shows showers of sleet and snow. And even as those wintry showers tend to fade through the evening, it's going to get cold enough for some ice, particularly across parts of Scotland and down into northern England. That could make for some slippery travelling conditions. It will turn cold for a time overnight, but by the morning, getting milder again across western and southwestern parts because we'll have cloud, we'll have outbreaks of rain arriving, and as that rain works its way into the colder air across the far north of England, southern Scotland, we could see some snow over high ground for a time. That snow likely to stick across parts of the Grampians and the Highlands, but then tending to turn back to rain because we'll have some milder air working in from the southwest, actually turning really rather wet across parts of northwest England, Wales, the southwest of England during tomorrow. Some strong winds as well. Far southeast staying dry for much of the day. Northern Ireland brightening up later. 4 degrees for Aberdeen, but 11 for Plymouth. That weather system looks like it's going to try to clear away, but actually it just links back into this next one, and that is Wednesday's weather maker. That is going to bring further outbreaks of heavy rain. This will mostly be rain because it is in some mild air across England, Wales, Northern Ireland, southern Scotland. Northern Scotland staying drier but colder, 5 or 6 degrees, 11 or 12 further south. And it is going to stay broadly quite mild for the rest of the week, in fact the rest of the year. There will be some rain at times, potentially some strong winds at times as well. We'll keep you posted on that. Rita.
Thanks very much, Ben. And that is the news this tea time on Boxing Day. You can keep up with all the latest developments on the BBC website. I'll be back with the late news at 10:30, but the news continues here on BBC One, as now it's time to join our colleagues across the nations and regions for the news where you are. Bye-bye.